I'm Brian V, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Tommy Chong. Tommy is an actor, writer, director, and comedian. Today, I want to find out from him, knowing that he knows the secret to comedy is timing and the pause. How can timing and the pause do us well in other areas of work and in our relationships? Join me today in my conversation with Tommy Chong. I'm Brian V, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Tommy Chong. Good day, fine sir.
Thank you. And yeah, I'm here in sunny California.
Sunny, and I'm here, sunny South Korea. I think it was 20. You're from Canada, so it was like 25 here in the last couple of days, which is not bad. I mean,
No.
it could be Canadian weather, and that would be a lot worse. Fine, sir, would you do me a favor and tell me what industry that you're in nowadays and what it is that you're doing?
Oh, the cannabis industry.
Whatever
And
you're up to most often.
well, yeah, it's cannabis. I got Chong's
Tommy Chong's
Chong
cannabis.
Tommy Chong's cannabis, and I got Tommy Chong's t-shirts and Tommy Chong's uh, pipes. Did you see them?
Paraphernalia, yes, and your
Yeah, we
exercise
got
bike too.
pipes. Anything to do with pot, and I can put my name on it. It's Tommy Chong. What part of? Oh yeah, you're from Nova Scotia.
Yeah, from Nova Scotia.
But
Yeah,
why is it a wife thing? That why you're in Korea?
my dear wife is Korean. I met her here my second year teaching, and I've been unable to escape ever since. We left a couple times, but
So are you fluent in Korean? Speaking Korean?
no, I jokingly say I just know when I'm in trouble. That's all. That's and that's quite often. So I probably know more than I'm letting on.
Yeah, I bet you do. I bet you. I lived in Paris for almost 4 years, and the only thing I really learned was je parle pas français. I don't
I
speak
don't
French.
speak French.
Yeah,
Un petit peu. That's everyone
yeah,
knows.
yeah,
Would
a little bit. No, I say no. Je parle pas français.
would you do me
Je parle anglais. Anglais.
Je suis parlé en anglais. No Spanish? All your times in LA?
You know, I'm Canadian, so
Yeah.
I got a thing against all languages. When I was growing up, we had a English or a principal try to teach us French,
Hmm.
and he couldn't speak French. So I think that I'll blame it on him.
Well, that's what someone once said to me. He's like, I speak two languages. My second language is English, but I haven't declared my first language yet.
Yeah,
And
well, I'm
I've
fluent in English and English. English, American, and Canadian. That's
yeah,
what I'm fluent
both different ones. Learning how to spell color and things like that.
in.
Would you
Well,
do us a favor,
I
Mr.
never.
Chong?
Sure.
You would you bring us back in this podcast. I know you're a busy man and you've been on many podcasts, but this one is why we work and understanding why people do what they do. And what I like to do is go back to people's very first job, no, even if it's out of the industry they're in now, and learn the motivations of the first job and work our way through up into what you're doing now and what keeps you going. So what would have been your very first job, even as a teenager, preteen, selling cards or bringing milk bottles places, whatever it may have been?
Well, my first job where I got paid was probably mowing lawns
Mm-hmm.
and babysitting. No, my first job was babysitting.
Mm-hmm.
I was a babysitter. And the thing was, I was a kid and everybody wanted to go out. So they would say, okay, you're staying home, you watch the kids. And then when they got back, they'd give me a few bucks, So that was my first job.
How old were you then?
Oh, probably 8, 9,
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. That's
maybe,
pretty
maybe
common.
younger. Maybe
Very,
younger. Well,
very.
we lived in the country. We lived in the country. And so when you're in the country, when you're 8, you're a grown adult as far as
Hmm.
farm work goes. You're carrying everything. Uh, then I got in. Then I got It's interesting. Then I made friends. We moved into the city, and then
Is this
well,
Calgary?
one time I
Sorry,
was, huh?
Calgary. You said moved into the
Yeah,
city. Was that
Calgary.
in
Yeah,
Calgary?
yeah, Calgary. Lived on the outskirts of Calgary, and that's when no one had a job. I mean, there was no lawns to mow because it was fields. And then we moved into the city with plumbing and electricity. And then I would have a friend. He would beg me to help him with his paper route. Please, please, I got to collect. It'd be 30 below, and
Hmm.
you got to collect door to door, collect your 35 cents, 75 cents, for the paper. And so I would help him collect. And then he'd give me a few bucks for that. He'd give me, a couple of bucks for doing that, for freezing out in the cold. But you know what I learned is that when you grow up in the country, you don't ask how much you're going to get paid. You're very grateful if you get paid anything. But what you're asked is to help somebody.
Yeah.
And so you just help. And that's really was the paper route. Help me collect. And then when he went away, he said, will you take over my paper route? And so my second job really was delivering papers on a bicycle, you know.
It's a good
And then,
perspective to have. It's a good perspective to have, just grateful for the job, not, well, how much is this, and calculate this and try to figure out if it's worth your time.
I never did that, and I still don't.
Yeah.
It's my weakness. I
Mhm.
still have a problem asking for money. I don't know. It was. I found that if you do a good job, then they usually pay you more than what you would expect. Then I started playing. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So and then another friend, he had a job delivering meat, and he was leaving or going away or didn't want the job anymore. Asked me if I wanted it, and I said yes before I knew what it was.
Yeah.
And so because we grew up poor. Uh, you know, I mean, if it wasn't for the $15 a month children's allowance, there would have been no income coming into the house, And my dad, it was he worked, but he was like a truck driver. He
Mhm.
was a Chinese waiter. But more than anything, he gambled, and so he would pay the necessities, but he wanted to keep the money in his pocket.
Mhm.
So there was no planning. It was just like gamblers,
Yeah.
they just gamble and they need their money, you know. Uh, yeah, so I've had a lot of jobs over the years. Yeah, I
Did
can
you
keep going.
recognize that? Did you recognize that about your dad when you were young? And then did that motivate you at all? Or did that maybe attract you to that lifestyle just when you were a younger kid?
No, my mother raised us basically, and
Hmm.
like I found out that I'm native, 8%. She was quarter. And she was very native-like in her
Hmm.
ways, and she was the one that had to be real about paying bills and paying rent, and they would put on the layaway plan if they needed something, and it was always necessities. It was never anything frivolous, you know. I remember moving into our house and looking around a little bungalow. Well, it was big when I was a kid, but it was like my mom and dad finally together because my mom had spent time. He was in the army for a while, and then my mother was in the sanitarium for TB, and I was in the hospital, and the kids were in the home, and so we finally got our little cottage with no electricity and no wood stove heat. That was our home. And I remember the walls were bare. And we used to get the Star Weekly. Do you remember that?
The star, yeah. Hmm.
The Star Weekly. And the centerfold was a usually a picture of a landscape or something. So I remember taking the centerfold out of the Star Weekly and scotch taping it to the wall so we would have a picture on the wall.
You're talking about having no electricity, wood stove, and I have some family in Texas, and they were a little upset over a couple of days without heat. You lived it every Canadian
Well,
winter.
we were warm though.
Yeah.
My dad made sure we had firewood, but it
Mhm.
wasn't that you buy the firewood we got. We would find or pop. There'd be a native going around dropping trees off at
Mhm.
property, and then you had a buck saw it, cut it to length, and split it and pile it. And that's the kind of wood we got. Or we went to construction sites and picked up scrap wood and bring that home. And no, it was firewood was always we needed it, but to cook with and to warm the house. It was the only warm we had. Yeah, I remember waking up in the morning and the fire had gone out and the floor was actually frozen. But we were cuddled in our bed, so my dad would have to get up and I'd hear him crunch, crunch, crunch across the floor, and they would start the fire. And he could get a fire going really fast.
Mhm.
Done. And then the fireplace, the wood fire stove would warm up the whole house. And I remember spending countless evenings, sitting by the fire, carving, in the wood pile, those
Mhm.
kindling wood,
Mhm.
and I'd be carving knives or toys.
Mhm.
We couldn't afford toys. There was no toy store in our life, and so we played cops and cowboys and Indians.
Yeah.
I would carve a gun, a 6 shooter. Or no, sometimes we got that for Christmas. We got a cap gun for
Yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah.
And a BB gun. We had BB guns too. And I was telling he was asking me about my indigenous uh, side.
Mhm.
I remember my brother and I, when we got older, you know, 10, 11, uh, our fun thing to do was throw knives into the shed, into the
Mhm.
side of the shed,
Mhm.
throwing knives throwing. I got pretty good. I got pretty good to the point. And then my mother actually one Christmas I got a really nice Swiss knife, and I got pretty good at. My brother was deadly though. He was a marksman. One time there was a lot of mice in the fields when we were walking one time with it, and we had our knives. We used to go on our own little camping trips, day trips. We're walking down this road, and the mouse ran across the road. My brother nailed it with a with a Bowie knife, like cut it in half. Yeah, he was pretty awesome. He really looked native. He's gone now, but he looked really native. And then we used to climb trees. That was our fun thing. But as far as jobs go, then when we moved into the city, I got a job mowing lawns.
Mhm.
The lady across this road needed a lawn, and yeah, and I looked. Yeah, I went to the dentist one time. Back in the day when you had the dental trouble with teeth, it was aching. The only dental work we ever got, they pulled it out.
Mhm.
That's all. That's
That's how
all.
they fix the
I
problem.
remember being at the dentist one time, and because we ran around the the yard, the neighborhood, no, just pants,
Mhm.
no shoes, no shirts,
Mhm.
and so I was really brown. And I remember being at the dentist one time, and he says, "I look Mexican, I guess." He says, "Would you like a job? Would you like a job gardening?" I'd never turned down a job.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So he gave me his address, and I had to find a way to get to the bus, to go there. And then I was a gardener, but it was too much for me. I was too small, So I worked there until I got sunstroke, and then I had to quit. So that was a job, and then I started playing music with a fiddle player across the field, and we'd play dances and that. And then I got to learn to play the guitar pretty good. And then I got a
How
job
old were you when you started playing music? Because that's a kind of a big part of your career as well.
I was 8 when I first started playing with the fiddle player. 8,
Mm-hmm.
9, 10, 11. Yeah, all those years played with the fiddle player. I guess 11, 12. Yeah. Yeah, because then I went to Army Cadets 13.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I met another native, and he was a singer. He was an Elvis impersonator. He became an Elvis impersonator. And so we played in the barracks. We would play. Uh, and I played accordion a little bit. I took it to camp with me, but I never played it. I was too shy.
Since you're a
uh,
writer, did you begin writing in high school or even earlier as well, or was that something that came later in your
oh,
career?
way later, way
Way
later,
later.
way later.
What were you
I,
thinking? What were you thinking in terms of your career in high school, or were you just kind of wandering around trying to figure yourself out?
well, high school, I had big hopes in the beginning, you
Okay.
know, matriculation, the old matriculation, where got into the university.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to high school, I took the hard course, but I couldn't do it. And then I discovered partying and girls,
Mm-hmm.
and not so much girls, but then I was playing music all through that with my partner. Not all the time, but I was a guy that worked. I was going to tell you one time when I guess I was about 13, 14, something like that. I got hired at the Lone Pine Supper Club, and they wanted me. The guy had a private party, and he hired me as a guitar player. And I said, "Oh, okay."
At 14.
At 14, and so I got my guitar. And I think my dad drove me because he was pretty excited, because he loved the music part of my life. And so when I got there, the guy had me be the bartender.
At 14.
It was his way of getting a bartender without having to do the age thing,
Yeah.
you know. And so instead, yeah, you can play the guitar, but first I
You got to
want
serve
you to
some drinks.
serve drinks, and I didn't know anything about it. And so I got everybody so drunk because I had no idea proportions or
Yeah.
anything, and so everybody was drunk on their ass. And my dad picked me up. He goes, "Wow, what happened?"
It was
you
great,
were
Dad.
you were bartending. You're bartending because I never drank,
Yeah.
but and then we started. Yeah, that was my job. I always had a job. That was one thing about Canada. When you grow up, there's
Mm-hmm.
no such thing. There was always a job to do, a job to be had. People always needed somebody,
Mm-hmm.
so I always worked. But I never. There was only one time, when I quit. Oh, first time I smoked pot, boom. Next day I went and quit school because then I decided I wanted to be a musician, I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to be a guitar player. But before I could get into my guitar playing career, I worked as a roofer. I was on a roof for a while
Yeah.
until it was winter, and then you can't do that job anymore. I was going to quit it. I worked with my brother making eaves trough with tin snips. Then I worked. Then I got a job in the telephone company because I thought maybe that would be a good job to have. So we ended up digging ditches. Oh, and I had a band at the time. Oh, and no, before that, I got a job in a cookie factory. See, in Canada, you go to the unemployment office and they would send you to different jobs. And so I
Mm-hmm.
went to the unemployment. They sent me to the cookie. They needed guys in the cookie factory. And so I learned
How to make cookies.
cooking, just grunt work. Although I made icing with a big cement mixer and big bags of sugar. They had me doing that. And then, and then I finally got a job with the telephone company. I had my name in there and they called me. And by that time, then I got everybody in the band working at the cookie factory. And that was a riot. I want to do a movie, but it was like Lucille
That would be a good
and
movie.
Ethel were doing the cookies. The whole band. I had both singers. Yeah, because on the band, we're always unemployed.
Yeah.
And we had black, the a lot of the band, well, Bernie and Tommy were black, and Dick was Indian, and so it wasn't with Dick, but it was Tommy and Bernie and myself. We got a job digging ditches in the middle of winter.
Were you digging the telephone poles themselves?
No, we were laying cable.
Okay.
And what you had to do, because you couldn't lay it in the summertime because it was small, but like water, sloughs they called them. And so we wait till it's frozen, and then you chop through the frozen ice in the frozen ground, and then you laid the pipe or the cable. So I had that job and we had to drive out of town for it. So we had to ride in a panel truck and get out
Long
there.
drive, going to work, getting
It
ready to
was like
dig.
it was like a chain gang,
Yeah.
like prison gang. That's what it was like. And the foreman, he was kind of proud. He had a black crew. He felt like a southerner. And the only thing he was missing was a horse. And so, but New Year's come, and we were still playing music at the time on the weekends. And he said, the foreman said, New Year's Eve is, I don't know, Wednesday or something. If you guys aren't here, Friday or something. He said, if you're not here Friday, then you're going to be fired. But he told us a week ahead of time. so we knew we weren't going to be there. So we never got a whole lot of work done in the meantime, in between time.
Going to be fired anyway.
Yeah. And then I had a teen fair or a teen club. I started a teen club in Calgary, and we started making, pretty nice money. Whatever money we made. In fact, no, I was paying the band uh, 10, 20 bucks a piece for the night.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest went into the teen club. I was legit. I could have kept it. And when we broke up, they said, what should we do with the money? And they said, spend it. Why keep it? But yeah, I was. And then we got kicked out of Calgary and went to Vancouver, and that's when I became a full-time musician.
Mm-hmm.
I had one job in Calgary. I tried. Oh, when I got married, and then I tried to get a straight job. I went to the unemployment office, and they gave me a job in a bakery, giving out free samples. He was trying to build up the crew, and I if I had stayed, I would have probably ended up being in the bakery, baking bread or something like that. But and then before I left Calgary, I wanted a white collar job, and so I had a friend in the band. I was a connection. See, in Calgary, everybody works. I don't care who you are. You work. If you work, you're either working or you're in jail because you can't steal without getting caught. So anyway, Pete Watts, the sax player, he was really handsome, part black, tall, beautiful, handsome, beautiful artist, everything. He had this job as an insurance inspector. Do you know about insurance inspectors? They're
I can
like,
guess. Yeah.
this is a company called Hooper Homes. And what they did, they would work for car insurance companies. And when someone bought car insurance, they would come to Hooper Homes for a report on the guy. And we were the inspectors that had to go out to the guy's house, talk to the neighbors, find out what kind of guy it was or a girl, and then fill out a report. So I got that job, and it was a white collar job, and I loved it. I loved it. A lot of fun. It was like you're a detective, you got to dress nice, and, keep clean, no digging ditches, knocking on doors. Hi, how are you doing? I say, listen, I'm thinking of moving in this neighborhood, and just want to ask you a few questions. Your neighbor is he the guy that owns that car? Whatever it is. And, oh yeah. Now he's single, isn't he? Oh, he's married. Oh, he's married, and yeah, is he a cool guy? And neighbors you find a way, and you get the neighbors talk about everybody. If you say it, if you do it in the right way. And so I got that job. I loved that job until being in the music business. Tommy Melton, the singer, would he was very ambitious, and so we wanted our own venue, our own club, and driving around, he found this empty movie theater that had been converted into a dance hall, and it was in Vancouver, at the end of 9th Avenue in the West End, Alma Street. At one time, it was called the Alma Theater, and so we went to the guy that owned it, and told him we wanted to rent it. And he said, "Yeah, okay, no problem. If you want to throw dance, you need a license." So we had to go to the city to get a license, and to get a license, we had to show parking, and we had to have plans, and it was a dirt parking lot, and so I drew up plans by hand with a pencil and paper, and kind of guessed the things, put the things, and in Calgary being a small town, the inspector said, "Oh yeah, okay, that'll do. Okay, here's your license." And so I'm still working for Hooper Homes at the time, and so I'm doing that, and then we're getting ready, and so we wanted to have a big act to open our club with, and Tommy Melton, the singer, he was like, could have been a football star, so he had that upper echelon as far as thinking goes, and he says, "Well, let's get a name act up here." So he phoned around. We went down to Seattle, the agents that handled everybody, and the agent was very happy to get into Canada, and so our first act was Ike and Tina Turner, and the review. Ike and Tina Turner
Pretty
review.
good first act, yeah.
And that was Ike and Tina, the Ikettes, these girls, and a band for $750 for one night.
That's a lot for them.
Yeah, but that's a whole band. That's everything.
Yep.
And so we advertised the way we always did, and my little sticker posters and that. We packed that little theater, packed it, had the great night, made tons of money. In fact, I was at Hooper Homes' office counting my share, because we just made the money. The rent was cheap, everything was paid for. Ike and Tina was taken care of. They got the first money, and then I think we made about a couple of $1,000 each. And first thing I did was quit Hooper Homes.
As you're counting the money, by the way, I quit.
yeah, exactly. Just changed money changes everything. And so then we thought we were on a roll, bring Ike and Tina, and then the cops. No, then because the whole idea was to kick off and then put our own band in there. And we played before Ike and Tina. And so then, so Ike and Tina came, opened the club, and then the weekend we had our band in there. Now we're back in the band. We already started, and we were good enough, good rhythm and blues band. The trouble is, though, it was in a residential area, and we brought like all our dances, we brought the crazies and the drunks and the people and looking for excitement, that kind of thing. And so the neighborhood, the next day after we played, neighborhood was littered with beer bottles and whiskey bottles. Oh, it was a mess. Boom, we get called into the city hall. The cops, everybody's there. And they're having a hearing. They're going to revoke our license. And so, rather than to revoke the license, okay, we'll leave. We'll get another. We found another venue, and then we found another club or empty restaurant in Chinatown. Big mistake, because we found out as long as you're in the West End, you can make a lot of money. But the minute you go to the East End, that's when everybody's afraid to go down there. And the people down there, they're the reason that people are afraid to go down there. They're not going to spend a lot of money because they're too busy trying to just make a living themselves. And so then the dynamics the changed. We just got a black crowd, and it was a tough crowd. The room wasn't big enough, and so eventually we had to close. We went broke, and then we went on the road, and we booked our own gate, our own tour around Canada, and we drove around. And we take a bullhorn and go through the town. Hey, the Shades are playing at. Was it Little Dad? No, the Shades are playing at. No, Little Daddy and the Bashers. Little Daddy and the Bashers are playing at the hall, the Legion Hall. Come on down and see us. One night only, and we limped around, and then we hit Kelowna, British Columbia, and the regatta. We hit the week, found a hall outside of Kelowna, $25 for the week. Yeah, no, it's $25 a night. Yeah, packed it every night for a week, packed solid. So again, Tommy and I, we were we paid the band, paid the hall, split the rest. So we had a nice little chunk of change, and then we opened the teas that didn't go, and then I guess Tommy and I broke up. Yeah, we ran out of gigs. Oh no! Then we got given a club. Yeah, we got given the Elegant Parlor, Vancouver, the Elegant Parlor.
Vancouver.
Yeah, that was at Davy. It turned into a gay club, but it was Davy and Burrard. And
is that the same place you started your stand-up comedian, your comedy?
Nope.
You had a different club.
That was a different club. We were given the Shanghai, the Elegant Parlor. That ran for 5 years. That's where we got discovered with Motown, and then the band went to Motown. Then we broke up. Then we came back, and by that time we were given another club by these clubs were in the Chinatown area, and this one we turned into a topless nightclub. And that's where I changed. Then when I got fired from Motown, I came back and started working in that club, the strip club, of course, working the lights. And then that's when I came up with the idea of improvisational nightclub with the girls as actresses. And they still danced, 1 or 2 numbers a night, but we would do the improvisational comedy. And that's where I met Cheech. And then we got fired from that gig because when it was a strictly topless, we made a ton of money. But when I turned it into a improvisational nightclub, we lost money.
From this time on, you're talking about the early 1970s, yes, or maybe even the late 60s?
The late 60s. Late 60s.
So into the 60s, 70s, and I mean, this is in when you started to take off. Were there times in which, even with Cheech or into the 80s and 90s, where you had to go back to some of these jobs you're talking about besides being a writer, director, comedian? Is there any times where times were
No,
tough and you had to get, or everything was staying on that one track?
no. When I had the clubs in the Topless Club and the theater the club, my wife or girlfriend at the time, Shelby, she was a waitress, and she made all the money, and so we kind of lived off her money. And then I was married, still married, and so my wife was supporting my first family, the first family, and I was kind of, she was kind of helping us, especially when Cheech and I came to LA, and then Cheech stayed with me and my first wife, and Shelby stayed in Vancouver, and then she came out, and it was pretty rough going then. Then my first wife kicked me out. Shelby and I ended up living in the beach, and she couldn't get a job, and so that's when Maxine would give me the odd little boost, little money here and there, just to feed, just to eat with. I had a Honda 90 scooter, and Cheech was living at home. He went back to his house. He's living at home, and so for a while there, we were almost, well, we were destitute.
Mm-hmm.
We were broke until we kept hammering away at the open mic nights. Then we got to be a regular at the Troubadour, and that's when we got discovered by the big record companies,
I've
and we ended up,
started
yeah.
to get a great appreciation for comedians. Can you go through the process, especially during that time? And you were just a couple of years before that, just doing some stand up for the first time. So how did you get into writing, into stand up, and what did that look like for you? Because I've seen some comedians, it's getting a joke, trying the joke, getting two jokes, trying those two, and you
Oh,
working up
sure.
some time. How was that for you, that process till you became
Well,
a comedian?
we were Cheech and I, when we got discovered, we were like a improv. We're a comedy duo,
Yeah.
and so we played off each other, and we would work out. Actually, we wouldn't work out anything out. We would go record it,
Mm-hmm.
and we had album after album. Uh, and then when Cheech and I broke up, and I became a solo act,
Mm-hmm.
I started doing solo work with Cheech.
Mm-hmm.
I started doing a little mic time. I got the bug,
Yeah.
but it wasn't until I saw Dennis Miller working live, and then I realized, hey, it was one of those. He's having so much fun. I want to join in. And so when I started doing my solo career, I had to start right from the bottom. And being a musician really helped me, because one thing about being a musician, every time you got to learn a new tune, you got to start from the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so when you change your act, you got to start from the bottom. You hone an act till it's so good, and then boom, you got to start from the bottom. In fact, one of the reasons Steve Martin quit the stand-up game was that he got tired of doing a new act.
Mm-hmm.
See, every
Mm-hmm.
year, Steve would write a whole brand new act, and he kind of just ran out of he was trying everything and doing everything.
Is
And
that tough for you? Was that the idea of
oh
starting
yeah,
at the bottom of, I mean, that could be kind of not depressing, but okay. It's like going up a mountain, down a mountain. Oh, here's another mountain. I have to go up again. How was that, knowing even some of the work that you've done, hard labor work? Did you look at it as, I've done a lot of work in my lifetime, I can do this again? Or was it discouraging to you?
anytime you work as a roofer in Calgary in the wintertime, there's not another job that even comes close to being as hellish as that. I mean, hey, listen, one time I played a gig this is Calgary Stampede time.
Yeah.
We ended up with a flatbed truck. I don't know how we did it, downtown. We walked around, and then we had friends of the band walk around, collect money. And Tommy and I and the rest of the band, but mostly Tommy and I were the leaders. I had a big fat roll of money in my pocket, and I'm walking home. Now we just played a gig, and we quit around midnight, I guess. And all of a sudden, this guy comes out of the shadows, and he says, "Sir, can you help me?" And I thought he needed some money or something. Sure, what do you need? He says, "I got this job, but I need someone to help me." And again, and I said,
Okay.
"Oh, okay, I'll help you." So I had my guitar, and I had a pocket full of money. And so he said, "It's down in the railroad. You know, we're the gig was really next to the railroad tracks, and so we didn't have to walk far. We walked down, and next thing I know, we're in front of a railroad car. And I says, so what's happening?" He goes, I got paid to clean out this railroad car. It was full of coal. It was like remnants after they had taken the thing, remnants, and everything had to be done by hand. And so my Canadian training kicked in and said, "Okay, let's do it."
Let's get her
I
done.
worked all night to 6 in the morning, and we did it. And then the guy tells me, "I haven't got paid yet. I can't pay you. I can't pay you right now." In the meantime, I had a pocket
You
full
were
of
all
money.
right. You had some money in the
And so I told him, I said, "Well, okay." He said, "But give me your address, and when I get paid, I'll bring it up to you." I said, "Okay." So I give him the address, went home. And my mother, she was such a dear, she looked at me, I'm covered black with coal. "What happened to you?" It's a long story. I got to go have a bath.
It's funny.
So I went and had a bath. And about a month later, the guy shows up. Well, I wasn't there, but he gave my mother
True to his word.
the money. But that taught me it's a work ethic.
Yeah.
And you find that in farms, especially, in the country. You got to do, hay, you got to cut hay while it rains, while it's sunshine, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And if someone else asks you to do something, you don't question, you do it. And then if they give you a tip or something else, then it's like, "Oh, okay, that's cool," And that's the way I always felt about music too.
Yeah.
If you got paid for having so much fun, that's a bonus. Because back in the day when we used to play music, we used to spend it all in Chinatown. We'd go to Chinatown and have a nice meal, a feast, and then,
So as
spend it there.
you're facing the upward battle of writing another skit again for comedy, you look back to the times being a roofer or, digging coal out of a
Oh, come on, come on. Entertaining a room full of people, especially with my background,
yeah.
it's I, I what stand-up comedians get. They get we're going to therapy. That's really what we're doing. The audience is the therapist, and we're going to therapy. And if they laugh or they don't laugh or whatever, never had a problem with audiences because I come out of the shoot. No, I'm a known quantity. So just say my name, boom, we had a thing. And then I got my wife involved in comedy, and so we became a duo. She would open for me, and then I would come on and do my act, and help her with her act, and then Cheech and I got back together again. And part of the deal was that Shelby stays in the show, and she stayed in the show. And eventually, we went to Australia, and the guy goes, "Okay, we're going to have an intermission after Shelby," because before that, she was always part of my show. Always part. I was kind of hovering there, and so she goes, and she loved it. And then she became a bona fide comedian on her own. Intermission. She did her start, middle, finish. Thank you very much. And there'll be a short intermission. And she loved it. I was nervous, but she loved it.
Should have you
And
warming up for her.
yeah, instead of the other way around. And then uh, and as you go especially with comedy, you're always looking and listening, and the paper, the news. I mean, the thing is, if you look at everything in a comedic way, you'll never be unhappy, no matter what it is. You know, just like in the Holocaust, when they were in the camps, I met a couple of guys, that survived them, you know, and there was a lot of humor. A lot of humor went by because that's what you had to do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know,
To
you
keep
had
keep your
to.
sanity. Yeah.
That's exactly it. Exactly. Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
a question about comedy, and I know I heard you say, and I think it's well known, especially for comics, is timing and the pause is most important. Can you speak upon, I think, because you just said if you look at everything through the comedic lens, it will help you. How in life, maybe with relationships and other types of work, could the pause and timing help you in that, relationships with a wife? I can learn to shut up, even as an interviewer, just those
It's
things.
a, it's a, it's hard. That can be very hard. Keeping your mouth shut. I'm still working on it. It's very tough. It's very tough. The pause, yeah. You know what? Like I'm taking tango. I've been trying to learn tango all my life. And finally, I got YouTube, and they got the best tango. Well, in tango, the pause comes with the musical, the violins. I never knew this before. I just learned it yesterday. The piano, bright and cheery. So you're walking fast. You're doing the walk, and then you come into uh, or the vocalist, or the horns, or whatever. And then there's another. You change with the music. But when the violins come in, you get very zoom. Then that's your pause. That's your sign to pause. And so with tango, it's all music. With comedy, it's rhythm. It's rhythm. And that's why a lot of comedians, the good comedians, they set you up with a rhythm, and then they break the rhythm. See, and it's like the banana peel. See the banana peel trip as you're walking along, and boom, unexpectedly
Mm-hmm.
you flip. So you got a rhythm, boom, then you break the rhythm, and that you don't want to break the rhythm when you're playing for dance music, but when you're doing comedy, you break the rhythm, and then and so you're leading people a certain way, and then boom, you break the rhythm, and then you give them another answer, you know, and it's unexpected. And yeah, there's tricks like juggling. There's tricks to do it. You got to be very steady with it, and more than anything with comedy, you got to know where you're going, or if you're not going anywhere, you got to make people think that you know where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
and and really, it comes down to listening. If you're listening, a lot of people, especially if they're not in the business, they don't listen. They don't listen. Yeah, they don't listen, and they're not aware. Because a lot of times, if you're not in the business, uh, if you're, the average guy, a lot of times you're sitting there mulling about the past or worrying about the future. You're very seldom there. You know, that's the way a lot of parents, the kids find out that, is your father? My father never was really there. Like my dad. My dad, he just took everything for granted, and he would come home and wait there until I started playing music. And then I was the object of other people's admiration. And then my dad, that's when he came around and started noticing me, and really appreciating me because, hey, that's my son. That's my son. So, so really, it's
Learning to
being
listen.
aware.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Being in the
being
moment.
aware. Yeah. Well, it's like hunting. You know, when you go hunting, whatever, you got to become that. You got to know how that prey thinks. You know, you got to know how they think. And that's why comedians, you know, they're very sharp. They know, you know, I do it all the time now. I try to guess what people do for a living, you know, just by listening to them. And I try to, I can guess if people are married or single, uh, you know, their status.
Mhm.
I can tell because I've been studying people, and I study it, and that's why everybody's so interesting to me. You know, I don't care who it is. I'll listen. Everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a story, and sometimes it blow your mind. The guy that we're partners with, um, JP, John Paul,
Mhm. Mhm.
his story. Oh my God! Now I met John Paul because he's deaf in both ears, and he was selling hearing aids, and there was a system where you could drill through the ear. You don't have to have stuff hanging around. Anyway, it didn't work, but I got to know him, and at first he was just a guy, a deaf guy. Then he told me a story. Oh my God, what a story. He was an orphan. No, he was a love child. Check this out. From France. His mother and his biological mother and father were lovers, but they were due to be married, and she got pregnant a year before they were supposed to get married. And so they were from a very wealthy, decent family. They could not have this baby. It would blow, they're Catholics, it would
Mhm.
blow everything. So she went away, had the baby very private,
Discreetly. Yeah.
discreetly, gave it to the orphanage to adopt. And now the orphanage, they wanted to make sure this baby is special. So they wanted to make this baby have a nice home. So this Jewish family from LA were looking for, they wanted a Jewish baby from uh, the war-torn country. They wanted to do their part. Instead, they got this little Catholic
Love child.
baby, love child, John Paul. And now John Paul, and during wartime, they didn't go through any of the paperwork. What Cohen, the the adoptive father, he flew to Paris to the orphanage, picked up the child, John Paul, the baby, had no idea
Mhm.
of its
Origins.
background. You
Mhm.
know, they said, "Oh, here's the baby," because they had another Jewish baby and it died. It died on them, and so they didn't want to give up the money, and so they said, "Oh, well,
This
here's
one
your
will do.
baby." Yeah, it was a bait and switch. And so isn't that a great story?
Yeah.
It's incredible. And
Yeah.
so John Paul gets raised in this Jewish family, and he knows as soon as he gets older, he's being treated differently than the rest of the family.
Mm.
He is, first of all, he didn't have to go to synagogue because they were respecting that he was a Catholic,
Yeah.
even though they didn't tell John Paul. Now this is so crazy. And so then John Paul didn't know, but he you know he got along with his brothers and sisters. You know, everything's fine. You know, they rode bikes, and he's down in Beverly Hills. He got to know Dean Martin's son and all the kids, and riding bikes and everything else. Then 18, he turns 8, and he's doing really good in school. The other brothers in the Cohen family, they're not doing that great. But John is just, he's a brain. He's got this energy, you know. And so
Like a good
the,
Jewish boy doing well in
his, eight,
school.
his 18th birthday, and he gets a letter from France demanding that he appears in front of the draft board in France because he
No.
was born in France. He's a French citizen.
Mhm.
And so they tracked him down and sent him a draft notice. Then his father finally told him the truth, that he was adopted, but he had to go back to France. So he goes back to France. So, and then it was just formality. They just wanted to see him there. Okay, you can go. Coming back to America, they won't let him across the border. They won't let him into America because he doesn't have a passport. Remember, he got smuggled in from France. so the only way he can stay here is that he has to join the armed forces. Now, none of his brothers are Jewish brothers, or none of them. So John, JP, and JP's happy as hell because he wants to be a pilot. So he became a pilot, and he gets shot down over in Vietnam. Takes a bullet in the chest. He saw combat, and he's driving this cargo plane. Takes a bullet in the chest. The medicine that streptomycin takes out both his hearing. Takes out, now he's got no hearing, and he's a war hero. And and so he comes back, uses his GI Bill, and puts himself through DePaul University, and gets a degree in finance, and that becomes the president of a Wells Fargo branch, in Japan. Oh, great story. And then we meet, and now he's our financial guy. He retired from the banking industry, but he's this genius, fun guy. Oh, I hope you meet him one time.
Well, I've been in contact with him. He's very nice. He's very kind.
There you go.
Yeah, he certainly is. That leads me to your writing career, in the idea of these stories that you come across. And I know that you just say, write what you know. Is there still, do you still have some things you want to write yourself?
Oh yeah, yes, I do. I figured I'm going to write, because I've been watching TV, and they got these sections of people's lives, and they go in for the detail. And so, there's sections of my life I definitely want to put on the screen, because they're so so incredible. I mean, I had choices, but I was always guided. I've got a guide. I've been guided all my life, because being alone and in the country, and the only entertainment we had was Sunday school. And so I went to Sunday school, and I was at that age where it really resonated. And one time, the Sunday school teacher said that, God's everywhere. God's everywhere. And so I'm walking home, and at night, crisp night, no street lights in the country. And so I said to myself, God, if you're everywhere, where are you? I want to see you. And I felt something kind of just raised my head up, looked up in the sky, and there's the heavens, so bright, the Milky Way, so bright. I could see comets, I could see everything. And I looked up, and it was like, you want to see God? There's God. And then I started, years later, I started, the jazz musicians turned me on to T. Lobsang Rampa was the first book I read, The Third Eye. And it was about a reincarnated Englishman that was he was a Tibetan monk, and he became a writer. He wrote The Third Eye. And because he was English, he could write English, a version of his life in Tibet, and he revealed the secrets of our beings, the silver cord, and the overself. And then I got into and then another, I can tell you because you asked. I don't tell this one until they ask. I was in New York going to the gym, the mid-city gym on 42nd Street, walking. All of a sudden, I swear to God, all of a sudden I felt my something grab my body and turn me and point me toward the store. And I looked up HarperCollins Publishing, and I was taken through the door into the store physically.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm over, then I'm led right over to a counter, a book, there's books there. And then I felt something push my hand down and grab this book. And it was the autobiography of Joel Goldsmith,
Okay.
Joel S. Goldsmith. Check him out. He never wrote a thing in his life, but he was recorded.
Mm-hmm.
He would give talks,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a spiritualist, Jewish, raised, secular or whatever, raised going to Christmas, having Santa Claus and all that stuff. And he was in the schmata business for a minute, and then he became a healer. And then he joined the Christian Science reading room, and then his father was actually dying, and then the Christian Scientist said you could heal him, and he healed him. This was way back in the 20s, and then the father he went to pick up his body, and instead his father's waving at the dog. Hey, I'm here. He healed his father, and then he became like a world-renowned healer and a speaker. And he told me about Emmett Fox, and that's another healer that I'm reading now.
Mm-hmm.
I got the Emmett Fox books here now, and what it is, it's one of those ask and ye shall receive, and so when I went on that journey, when I said I want to learn more, and that's what it really was, and there was a visualization. Catherine Ponder is her name. She wrote about visualizing,
Mm-hmm.
and I told my son just recently. I was laying on the beach in Venice when did I have the scooter? I don't think I even had the scooter. Oh, no, I did. I had the scooter. Our daughter, with my wife now, Shelby, Precious, was a year old, and she was playing in the park, in the swings down in Venice. I'm laying on a towel in the sand, and I'm looking up over, visualizing. It looked like a mountain, but it was the Pacific Palisades. And I visualized me driving. No, I had the scooter. I'm visualizing me driving a new car and having a house with a pool. And I'm visualizing that one day I will be beside that pool.
Mm.
And then the other day I was laying beside the pool, and I had a flash of me visualizing it. and you talk about time travel. Uh, that happened, what, 20, I don't know how many, 30 years ago,
Mm.
30
You,
some odd years ago. And here I am. And it was like, it's the same guy. I'm the same guy. No change.
yeah.
No change. And this is because the world we live in, it's ours. It was promised to us. All the riches within, all the glories is ours. If you have faith, and if you can visualize it, and that's how I became comedian. I remember when I first started doing comedy, I would leave the hotel room to do my set, and I would visualize myself coming back to the hotel room after the set's over, and the set was so successful, and now I'm coming back in, and then later that night I'd be coming back in, and I would remember that time I'm putting the key in the door, and I'd say, oh, here I am. I'd finished the set, and I use that quite often. Now I'm almost in a euphoric state of being, because I guess there's something, even more greater things that are coming down the pike. Something greater. The next step, whatever it is. There's something really, really, something really good is
Well,
on the horizon.
maybe Mr. Chong, I'm thinking as you're talking, and I've had a few experiences in my life, and only because, as you said, as because you mentioned it, I'm only mentioning it. Otherwise, I usually don't on my podcast. But I'm a Christian. So what do you do with Jesus, or what do you do with Christ? What do you like in, because in that sense, if you talk about believing by faith and all the riches, all of that is more heavenly, and I don't dismiss anything that you said, because I believe it's probably true for you. Not only that, the real experiences, I believe that they can happen and that they're true. But in the end, what do we do with like our guilt, our sin, and Christ, who, where the Bible says, came and paid for it all? And I don't mean to admonish you or anything like that. I don't want to,
No,
but you
no.
were saying something greater and something next. And I'm just a really sincere, like a heartfelt, what do you do with Christ?
Well, easy. First of all, realize that Christ is not his name.
No, you're right. That's Messiah, and it's Jesus of
Christ
Nazareth. Yeah,
is his title,
correct.
the Christ, and the Christ really means the Holy Spirit. That's what Christ really means. It's the Holy Spirit. Uh, that's why he could say, "Listen, my Father in heaven, many mansions."
Mm-hmm.
Because in the spirit world there is nothing but love, and that's what he was waiting to go. He
Mm-hmm.
was being tortured and everything else, and he says, why have you forsaken me? I've done enough, because I know that up there. And just when he said, I can return in 3 days, I
Mm-hmm.
will. But that's all of us. That's not just Christ. That's not just Jesus. That's all of us. And as humans, and not only humans, but that's all of us living beings, because there's two of everything. For every action there's a reaction. For every up there, you can't have up without down. You can have right without left. So in the physical world that we're living in, there are dramas, conflicts, fights, uh, all sorts of physical things that are happening. We have to keep breathing in order to stay in the physical world. We have to work at staying in the physical world, and we're in the physical world to learn. We're learning. Everything we do, we're learning. The homeless guy, he's learning. The rich guy, Woody Allen, the pedophile, he's learning. He's got everything, and all of a sudden he's got that burden. He's learning. We're all learning. And so the sins, what these sins are forgiven, they're not really sins, they're experiences. And the experiences, after you've had the experience, uh, be it good or bad, they disappear, because they're only here. We're only here in the moment. Each moment we're here, that's when we're here. We're not here a moment ago, you know. We're here now, and we're not in front. So the idea, and what happens with, say, with the Christian church, where they monetized it, and that's why Jesus was really pissed off. The only time he was ever pissed off was with the money changers at the temple, because he realized that they're charging people to go to do what is free, what is just in your mind, but yet, and that's what organized religions do. And they're here for a reason too, absolutely. Don't give
Mm-hmm.
everything that is done is in the physical world is done for experience, because in the spiritual world there's no want, need, or desire. There just is. And the spiritual world is filled with love. And that's why these 500,000 people that have died, you don't be sad for yourself, but you don't be happy for them. That's why the slaves, back in the day, when someone died, they rejoiced, because he was free at last. He was free. He's back in the spirit world, where nothing but love, nothing but love. But here we're here to learn, and we're here to suffer, and we're here to learn. Like bodybuilding. When you go to the gym, that weight, you don't. That weight is there for a reason. That weight, you pick it up. That weight is going to make that muscle stronger, but it's not going to get any lighter until you get stronger. But everything is here for a reason. Evil is here for a reason. There's a reason why Trump acted so incredible. If you want to know the truth, Trump is the reason that Biden got elected. So Trump,
Well, I saw
it
you
was,
on Joe Rogan, the interview I was watching, and you predicted Biden would win, and he did.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And at the time, but what I'm saying, uh, the guilt, again, guilt is living in the past.
Mhm.
In the past. If you want to lose guilt, don't live in the past. And the future is not here. And the future will never be here because it's a future. But what's here is now, here and now, here and now. And that's where we're at. And so no matter where you are, if you know these are secrets, by the way. See, people, first of all, they don't want to know because they're not supposed to know. It's just like a spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. You got nothing to worry about because at the end of the day, you're going to be fine. You're going to be in the spiritual world. You're going to go back. You're going to recalibrate. You're going to look at what you've learned, and then what you need to learn, and then you're going to come back, and you're going to be, and it goes forever, forever. It
Yeah,
never stops.
I agree. It
Never
goes
stops.
forever. I agree. It goes forever. It's the idea of what do we do with Jesus, and just my only suggestion would not to be the cliche of don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, thinking of John Paul. But regardless of that, I don't want to go into, but I think a lot of what you're saying has some truth into it, and it does go forever. It is a spirit world after. Wondering about our guilt and what we do. I just, by the grace of God, place it on Jesus. That's all.
You
Because
can, you can.
yeah,
Don't forget, we are, Jesus. See, Jesus was born in, I understand, the thing is, Jesus was ripped off by the Romans. Their religion wasn't happening anymore
mhm.
because Christianity, it wasn't Christianity at the time, but this weird prophet, that rode a donkey, this weird prophet, he's got multitudes believing everything that he says, and he really did create the loaves and fishes and all the miracles that he could do because he was so connected. But it came at a time. But look, but always remember what Jesus said. He said, "Whatever I do, you can do the same. All the miracles that I create, the same mind that's in me is in you." That's what he
Yeah, he
said.
was
And
speaking to
and
his
and
disciples at that time about when I send the Holy Spirit that you can do greater works because the Holy Spirit will be within you, and that was in a
that's right.
dispensation in a particular time. But that
Yeah,
that's neither here nor there. Um,
yeah.
but I'd like to ask you. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to take too much more of your time if you don't have it. I think what you do is incredible, especially knowing your background a little bit more, of which I did not know. Most people just see the stardom, right? And they don't see the
Yeah,
struggles. And most people know that you went to jail as well. And that was a struggle. But understanding how hard of a worker you are is what I appreciate. Do you have any advice for people just thinking of yourself, whether it's babysitting or mowing lawns or delivering the paper, delivering meat as well? Or people who are changing careers where you went from a musician to even directing, some of those things you ebb and flow with. Do you have advice for people getting into work or changing their career?
just listen, listen. One time I did a movie where it says, "It's God," and the reporter, at the red carpet said, "So, have you talked to God lately?" And I said, no, I never talk to God. I just listen to God. So that's my advice,
Mm-hmm.
because that small, still voice, that's what guides me. That's what guides me.
Mm-hmm.
And when you listen, you got to stop, because you can't listen when you're talking. You can, but you don't hear. So you got to be quiet. That's what meditation really is. Meditation really is listening, because you're listening. You're listening to the sound of the blood rushing through your veins. You're listening. And when you do that, that's when the messages comes to you. See, like a comedy. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times when comedians are pausing, they get that pause. They're planning in their head. They're going, okay, okay. Should I do this one? Ready? Or I'm going to keep going with this one. Or I better not. You know what I mean? And
Do new jokes come to comedians, to yourself, when you're on stage and it's something you didn't work out or you didn't really fully define, but as you take that pause, you're
yeah,
thinking, hey, this might work, and then you just go with it?
everything, everything, everything. There's no finished product.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is a finished product. It's in this stage. It's in its infancy. Now it's matured a little more. Now it's old. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so yeah, with comedy. Oh yeah, sometimes it'll hit. Usually because I got a nice rapport with my oversaw, so I'll wait. I'll wait, and maybe I'll talk up a little bit, because that'll put me in the moment. But sometimes the thing of weight hit me. It's hit me a few times, and I got nobody here. I used to be able to phone Cheech and tell Cheech, but I can't anymore. So now, and I used to be able to tell my wife, but I can't anymore. She's on a different trip, and I tried telling my son, but no, he's on a different trip too. So I just got myself now, and sometimes I'll write jokes for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, that's another thing. Uh, as you get older, you see people talking to themselves. There's nothing wrong with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm
They're just
realizing that
keeping.
when you're younger, you're like, that guy's crazy. And then you get older, you're like, I'm talking to myself.
Yeah, there's nothing. I think the most important commandment is judge not. That's the most important command. I thought it was so important. I had it ticked up. I had it on the refrigerator for a while, and I think it got through to my wife. Maybe.
Although I think when
It's hard to
Jesus,
say.
he said, judge not, but then he called people's pigs and swine. So he wasn't say don't judge, but judge rightly, I think. Just,
Well, no, judge not. But no, the reason you don't judge is because when you put yourself in a judgmental state of mind,
mm-hmm.
then before you do anything, you start judging it.
Yeah.
You see, so you don't want to do that, especially with a comedian, because when you get that
Yeah.
impulse, don't judge on it. Just do it. Okay, okay. I do it a lot, and sometimes, especially on stage, it's exciting, because when you get to be doing it as long as I've done it, as long as other comedians
Mm-hmm.
do it, you can have so much fun with the audience. But you got to be there, because it's not a job anymore.
That's
It's
important for the
really,
audience member as well, right? Not to be sitting there waiting to judge your joke,
yeah,
but to be open and ready for what
yeah,
you're delivering.
yeah. And that's why people, I like him. What bit do you like? No, I like him.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So many comedians. Al Franken, I get a big kick out of watching Al Franken, the senator, because he is basically a comedian. And so when somebody says something to him, I can see the comedy, the gears working in his head. A lot of, I love comedians.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, no judging. What it is, it's like art. Like I say, I have a hard time showing my art to anybody, because it's so personal to me.
What kind of
These
art are
are
you
my
doing? What kind of
my
art are you
children.
doing?
I do carvings. I carve. I make bongs. I make pipes. I'm doing some.
Are you painting as well?
Not yet. Not yet. I did this one painting here.
Why is
I'm kind of proud.
why is it hard to show people? I think you probably have some great talents,
I
especially
know. I'm.
whittling those sticks when you were in Canada by the fire.
Yeah. I'm not. I'm not. Uh, I don't do my art for people to go, oh, I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I do my art for me that I like it, and I'm so afraid. It's silly. I'm kind of afraid to be to be judged, because I've had that happen to me. People judge me. When I'm not around, they don't know that I can hear what they're saying. And that's another reason why I find it very important to be nice to everybody,
Hmm.
because there's nobody worth being rude to.
Hmm.
Nobody likes to be rude to, and that,
Hmm.
and not noticing people. That's why I think it's very important that you notice people. You don't have, like I tell people when I do cameos, be nice to the homeless. If you can't give them money, give them a smile. See them, because a lot of times people purposely don't see, they don't look at what they don't want to see. They go, oh,
Hmm.
or they'll walk away and they, oh, did you see what she was wearing? All that stuff. It's so bad for the person that's judging.
I have
That's
a
what I'm
story
trying to
for
say.
you. I have a story for you. Speaking, and this is a rip at the church, to just to be honest. Once I befriended a prostitute, a call girl, I guess we would have called her, and I brought her to church with me. And it took weeks and weeks and weeks, maybe even months, to convince her to come. But one day she was finally ready, and she wore her best clothes. I brought her to church. She happened to know someone in the thing, and it was all backbenchers. And then that it just became people speaking out. She stormed out of there and never came back to that particular place. And it was one of the worst things I've ever experienced, especially weeks and months of trying to get her, knowing her difficult life. That's what you're talking about, understanding, appreciating people in the place that they are, and they didn't, and they
No.
dropped I mean, there's a group of people there. It wasn't the whole church there, but a group of people definitely dropped the ball. And this girl, she was wearing what she would have wore on a Friday night, but those were her best clothes.
You
It
see
was
see what you
heartbreaking.
did. No, but you see what you did there, and you got to realize this too, is that was meant to be,
Mm.
because what you did, you shook everything up, and that's what you take away from that. That's good. You shook her up, you shook them up, shook everybody up.
It
Yeah.
was tough. It was a
Yeah.
difficult thing, and it
Well, that
made.
that that, that happens,
Yeah.
in neighborhoods. They don't want the black guy in there. In the meantime, they're on TV watching some incredible black performer, Tiger Woods or something. Scoring being incredible. But they wouldn't want that guy in their neighborhood. Come on,
How is
that's
Tiger?
apparently still in the surgery. That's
Is
what I
he? He
heard.
got in an accident yesterday, and it
He
says his
did in
legs are
California.
it,
In
it busted up.
California, yeah. Oh,
Hopefully
he's
he's
messed
okay.
up. Well, we'll see.
Speaking,
It might be the best thing that happened to him.
we'll hope so.
Yeah, I hope
It's
so.
tragic when you see people who are famous and for whatever reasons. I mean, some people seem like they fall in a way that is really detrimental to their career, right? Like so, but it's
That's the
really
lesson.
it's a
That's what they're learning. That's the lesson.
hopefully
That's the lesson.
hopefully they learn, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, I
Well, it
don't
doesn't
learn.
matter.
I'm an idiot, and I make mistakes and fight with my wife, and don't treat people the way I probably should be treating them.
Do you
Uh,
have do you have kids?
my two darling children, 11, Brianna, Benjamin, 7. Brianna and Benjamin.
so pretty, so beautiful, huh?
Yeah.
So beautiful,
My
mixed.
wife's Korean.
Oh,
Yeah.
and are they speaking Korean?
Yeah, they speak Korean and English, and my daughter's
Oh,
speaking some French too, because we had her in
oh, I
French
love it.
immersion
I
when we
love
were
it.
in Canada for a little bit. But my dear wife is hard. I mean, you mentioned your wife being good with organizing the money and all this. My dear wife has them when they're homeschooled, like when they're not in school because of Corona, just piles and piles of work. But they're
That's
doing it.
Oriental.
They're
That's the
doing it.
Chinese way.
Yeah, the Korean
They can
Asian
do it.
way. It's
That's their Asian way. Is so cool. It's so cool. Koreans are like the soul people of the Orientals. You know, they're the tough mountain, tough,
speaking of people
beautiful
like
people.
Tiger Woods and my dear wife with the hard work, is there, I know you went to jail, but is there some adversity? And I only have another question for you if you have the time for it.
Hmm.
One, kind of, is there anything people don't understand about you that you would like them to understand so that they can have a better appreciation of your work? I mean, in this last hour that we've been speaking, I've gained a great appreciation for you and the work. My mom happened to pass away just last year, and she was 66, and you're going on 80 something, and your work
83.
83, and you're working hard. I mean,
Hmm.
COVID probably puts a little wrench in everybody's plans, but I mean,
Not
you might
mine.
be exactly right, and
It
you're
helped. It
working
helped.
hard.
Yeah.
You look good. You have an exercise bike there behind you there, or a
Hmm.
treadmill. Is there anything that you'd like people to understand about you a little bit better so they can understand you have decades of work before you, and knowing that you worked hard and you weren't willing to say no to anyone, and you didn't care about the money came, but you didn't do it for the money in particular,
No.
and that's what I have appreciation for. Is there anything else that people may not understand about you?
It's hard to say. You know, I I was kind of shocked the other night. We've been going out with these people for ever since the lockdown and
Mhm.
before, and I thought we knew each other. You know, and so the other day we're at the Bel Air Hotel and we're having dinner, and I said something about jail. You know, and the lady goes, "Jail? Were you in jail?" Now everybody, if they know me, like you know, that was news.
Mhm.
it was it was headline news.
It wasn't
It's
just in the
it's
local paper, it
folklore.
was on.
It was people talking about it. His kid, their kid, everything. And she goes, "Oh, were you in jail? I didn't know that." And she was serious. And then so I realized, you know, that and the guy, her husband, he got the COVID. He got really bad, and he came out of it, and he's still like Trump, you know. But they're beautiful people,
Mhm.
and they're very wealthy, very wealthy. But I looked at her, wow, and it was Sugar Ray Leonard, you know, the boxer.
Mhm.
He'd sit beside me, and we're a gang, you know. We go, but I got strangers know more about me than and
Mhm.
we're
Yeah.
really
That
good friends.
this person, yeah.
What I realize is people, for the most part, they don't have much time for anybody but themselves and what they see, you know, their thing. And I understand it, and I really go for it because again, it's why we're here. We're here to learn, you know, and
Is there
and
something that
and
you dive into that people might not, something that you like to do that it's not your work? Like you were mentioning art or something as well, or
no, I can tell you the hidden fears that I have.
mhm.
I think more than anything, it's a hidden fear that I had. It's gone now. I talked to Larry King because when you get older, you lose your sexual ability,
Mm,
and
mhm.
that was my big fear as I was getting older. And luckily, I was okay. And then I had
Your fear was that it was going to happen, or your fear was that it happened?
it was over.
Okay.
That my sexual
That it was
life
over at that point. Yep.
was over. It's over, you know. And I met Ernest Borgnine when I was about, I guess, 60s someday, you know. And I met Ernest, and I said to Ernest, how's your sex life? And Ernest says, he was old. He goes, I masturbate. And oh, okay, I can think that. Well, then I talked to Larry King, and I asked Larry, because I had prostate cancer
Mm-hmm.
and rectal cancer. And so, and then I tried to revive the guy, and I was on testosterone for a while, and it was just not happening. In fact, I broke out in pimples and shit, and so I had to quit that. Then I realized it's gone. So I talked to Larry King. I said, Larry, how's your sex life? He goes, non-existent. Then he said, but there's an upside. And I said, and I leaned forward, yeah. He goes, you don't get jealous.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it changed my life, because up until then, I was feeling like you would feel inadequate. You know,
So what
come
would
on.
you just be, I mean, maybe it's my ignorance or just stupidity, but what would you not be jealous of? Other people who are still active?
Jealous of my wife's affection for someone else. Jealous of, that's what Larry was. Larry
Yeah.
was married to a young,
Yeah.
beautiful woman. He
Yeah.
divorced her. He actually divorced her.
Mm-hmm.
So that the kids would get the inheritance and not her,
Mm-hmm.
because he knew that she's going to marry,
Yeah.
you know, she's going to do well, she's going to be okay. With me, it was, I got a beautiful wife,
Mm-hmm.
and every once in a while I'd see signs of her flirting, you know,
Mm-hmm.
with guys. And then when you got cancer, you know that your time is limited, and it's not only limited, but it's inevitable. You know, I mean, you know, if I make it to 90, it's going to be wow. You know, if I make it to 100, oh shit. But that's it. That's it. And so I can see the end of the road, you know. And so for a while there, I felt scared, you know,
Yeah.
inadequate, you know. And then I talked to Larry, and now I'm at peace. I'm totally at peace, because I know, because you got to practice what you preach.
Yep.
You know, it's not. There's one thing I can tell everybody what to do, how to live your life, but when it comes to yourself, you got to practice what you preach, and that's what I'm doing now, and so that's really why I'm devoting a lot of time into talking and doing my carvings, and because that's what I want to leave. I'm not going to sell a piece of my art until I'm gone, and then all that will go to my offspring, you know, my kids and my family, you know, and I'm quite sure it's going to be worth something, you know, for them.
You mentioned jail and you mentioned some difficulties there, but at being at peace, is there any adversity that you faced in your life in particular, but you can use that, whether it hinders you positively or negatively, or helps you or hinders you, but you can use that adversity to encourage other people, especially in thinking of work, right? Because some people go to work, they're depressed, they're upset, they lose a job, they're not certain of their future, money is tight, and they face adversity. So I mean, thinking of your coming up of being a hardworking man, right? There's no doubt about it. You're a hardworking man
Mhm.
right up till today, and people face adversity. And do you have some adversity in your life that you can help appreciate? It helps you appreciate the adversity other people are facing in their lives, and encourage them in some way.
Depression is probably the biggest threat to humanity.
Yeah.
It's depression.
Yeah.
If you can get by depression, uh, you're okay, because depression is like a dark hole, and you can't crawl out of it. You get more and more depressed, because it's like depression adds on more depression. You know what I found out? And I'll kind of leave you with this. We were talking, about you're Christian, Jews, and Muslims, and they kind of, these religions kind of rule the planet, in one way or another. There's wars fought over it, all sorts of things. It's a belief. There's one word that is used almost all daily. And if you have the ability to just realize how the brain works, how the mind works, the mind is it's a computer. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But like a computer, you can't have two thoughts at the same time. You have to have one thought at a time. And so if you can control your thoughts, you'll never be unhappy. But there's a key to controlling your thoughts. And that's what Emmett Fox, he writes about it. It's called the golden key. That key, I boiled it down. It's gone through meditation. On meditation, you have a word, you concentrate and everything. I brought it down, pared it down to the least common denominator, because that was really getting it down to the lowest common denominator is really the secret of any success. Like, you can't have anything until you lose everything. Then you can start building again. Just, you got a building, you tear it right down. The foundation, everything goes gone, boom. And then you rebuild something new, better, stronger.
You're bringing math into it, though. That's tough.
That's okay. No, but here's how simple it is. If you can only have one thought in your head at a time, and I want you to try this later, then the most powerful word in the human language is God. That's the most powerful word. We saw a war being fought at the Capitol in Washington, in the name of God. When they swear on the Bible, they swear in the name of God. When you get buried, you're going to God. God is the most powerful word. So you don't have to say it. You just have to think it. And then when you ask God, like I do all the time, I lose my phone. I lose it all the time. I'd say to God, God, where's my phone? I don't even say please anymore. I'll say, God, where's my phone? That phone turns up. Because it is the most powerful thought you can have in your head. You can't have any more powerful thought. Because what does God represent? Everything. Alpha, Omega, everything. In the beginning was a word, and the word was God. So right now, whatever you're doing, you lose something, you want something, anything, put everything else out of your mind except the word God. And do it in a very loving, beautiful way. And you can do it very secretly. Like when you're anything, if you're having an argument with your wife or anybody, just stop whatever you're doing and just think of God. Just God. And watch the miracles happen. Because what did Jesus do when he did all the miracles? He thought of God. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Gotta go.
There's how can people reach you? And I just have one final question if you have it, and that's why do you work?
Why do I work?
Yeah.
Because it's not work. If it was work, I wouldn't do it. I have fun. I don't work. I have fun.
Thank you, kind sir. And they can find you on your website,
Yep.
TommyChongsCannabis.com
That's the
as
best.
well.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you, kind sir. I truly appreciate the time you've given me, and I appreciate the work that you do.
Okay. Try it.
I'm BrianVee. Thank you to Mr. Chong for coming on, and his work is admirable. He's a hardworking man, and I appreciate what he does on a daily basis. Like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification button. If you would like to, or you know someone else that would like to be on the show, email me at whywework, BrianV@gmail.com, whywework, BrianV@gmail.com. And I'm BrianV, and this is Why We Work.